reconvened this meeting. All right, and now we're for our open public hearing. Ms. Ballou?
Mr. President, this is the second reading of ordinance number 2025-740, an ordinance of the City of Williston, Florida, amending the City of Williston Code of Ordinances as amended, providing for the amendment of Chapter 28 of the Williston Code of Ordinances to add Chapter 28, Section 5, prohibiting public camping or sleeping on any public property, public building, or public right-of-way, providing for codification, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing severability, providing for incorporation in the City Code of Ordinances, and providing an effective date. Mr. President, this is the look, I told you, I insist on being verbose, and this is my punishment. The ordinance in front of you is the second reading of the public sleeping ordinance that you all saw previously. Again, this is handed down from the Florida legislature. These are requirements. We're required to have penalties for these kinds of things. I'm happy to answer any questions, but there have been no changes since the first read.
Okay, anybody have any questions?
Can I ask what the penalties are for this?
Yeah, so on page, I think it's 129 of the agenda, the penalty for the first violation is no less than $50. Penalty for the second violation, no less than $100. Penalty for all subsequent violations, no less than $200.
Is there some place they can sleep? Other than in a car
Private
that is
property?
licensed
Normally we'll assist them to get to Gainesville.
to the city limits.
To Gainesville where there is
To the
housing.
St. Francis
And
house.
same thing, yeah, St. Francis, and then there's one in Ocala
Grace
also.
something.
So we do that all the time where we do assist them to get there.
Okay.
So we'll drive them down there, or Reverend will drive them down there, or somebody will go.
Okay. All right.
I have a quick question.
Makes me feel
Yes.
Who enforces this? Is this code enforcement? Because those are fees. They don't sound like fines.
It is a cooperation between code enforcement and law enforcement officers.
So how would we fine them?
So
Is it
they
the police going to fine them? Or
they can
is
get a
code
ticket.
enforcement- Oh, they're getting a ticket. Okay. So that's not me.
I
Thank
guess
you.
That's not you.
Of course, code enforcement could call the police.
Or code.
There you go. Code enforcement could call the
All
police.
right, Mr. Donald?
Who gets the money from the fine?
How are you going to make them pay?
I don't think you're going to collect anything because
I'm just saying, is it the state that receives the fine, or is it the municipality that receives the
So
fine?
if you look down to the very next section, number 3, all fines collected from violations or held by the city for the care of the homeless population to fund any nonprofit organization that provides food, shelter, medical care at the discretion and selection of the majority vote. So you all will hold this money, and then you will vote on what you do with it. Donate it to some kind of nonprofit organization.
The reason why I brought this up is because that seems really cool, because what we could do is just invite a bunch of people to sleep out and fundraise off of it.
If they're okay with receiving a ticket.
$50 to sleep on the street, right?
Yeah.
We'll have a pajama party in the pavilion. Yeah.
So here, I mean,
That's
okay,
very
so
true,
this is
Mr.
my
Mayor.
question. If they're sleeping on the streets, they probably have no money,
Yeah.
and we are fining them. How?
That's what I said. Good
Okay.
luck collecting it.
Right.
Mr. Bishop?
So the last time you brought this up, I had asked a question, and so it's back up again, and I'm going to ask the same question. Major Fortney over there has a gun. He can legally use it. What's Don got?
Matt.
Not well.
You got
You said both ways. You said the PD
I
can
said-
do it, or the code
I said
enforcement can
he's
do
going to
it.
call the police. That's what I said.
Well, if he's going to call the police, it ain't no sense him going over there. My point being is you don't need to send an unarmed guy
He's
to a
probably going
tent.
to see it first.
I'm just saying we don't need to send an unarmed guy to a tent and knock on a tent and say, please leave, because you don't know what's inside the tent.
I know if he
Good
sees
point.
them, I say call the police. And he can do that because he sees them.
Well, we can all do that too.
Yes, you could.
It's a very good point.
All I'm saying is I would hate for any of our employees, non-equipped, to go bang on a tent to ask the guy inside, please leave or pay $50. The guy may not like that.
Well, then don't do that.
Yeah, then don't do it.
But then-
I mean, if you don't
but
feel like
that's
you can
his-
do it, don't do
that's-
it. I
that's
would
his-
do it in a heartbeat.
But if you're telling
Excuse me,
him,
you can't sleep here.
if you're telling him that's his job and he doesn't do it, then technically he can
I
get in
did.
trouble
I told
for
him
it.
it was job
But
to call the police.
That would be any code enforcement stuff, though, because he's going to tell other people and fine them for their grass in their yard or all the other stuff, which is the same.
I've
talking to somebody.
had the same argument ever since we started code enforcement. I agree.
It's a little bit different because when we talk to them about a code enforcement issue, we give them time, we work with them. This is like a ticket.
Well, and obviously we're going to ask them to leave, and we're going to tell them this is what's going on. If you don't leave, then you'll be fined to that effect. So we're going to do the same thing as Don's going to do in one of the houses. We're going to say, will you please leave, and this is the reason why you have to.
What the ordinance provides is that Don and law enforcement officers are authorized. Doesn't make him required to do this, and the authorization could just be Don is authorized to contact law enforcement.
I'd rather see it written down that way than personally. I know I'm being disrespectful and I get it, but I just don't think it's right to have him or any of our employees be involved, period.
To the will of the council.
I hadn't got a problem with it because I know he's going to not do anything he doesn't feel comfortable doing. He'll call the police.
So if you roll up,
It's really
and
not any
there's a
different than
tent,
any other
just
code
call-
enforcement issue.
Just
then
call the
just don't
police.
put yourself in harm's way.
And I can tell you, any homeless person who comes to get assistance from my place of employment, I tell them that they can go to the pavilion in the center of town, and that there is shade and there's a restroom, and especially if it's raining or something, but that they have to be gone by dark. I tell every one of them that.
So is this a code violation if they're sleeping?
It is a code violation. Yes, subject to a civil ticket.
Okay. So it is under the purview of the job description, is it not? It's a code violation.
Yeah.
Now we can give him instructions on something different to do than actually going to the tent, which would be to call law enforcement.
Right.
So
Well, we would need to call the law enforcement anyway because we don't give tickets. Code enforcement goes to code enforcement goes to our Board of Adjustments and code enforcement, and they give fines. So we don't write tickets. So we'd have to call the police for any reason.
which is fine. I'm just saying it's code enforcement. He's a code enforcement officer. So
The
It's
ordinance
still under
contemplates
his-
that they'd work together.
yeah.
Okay.
But if it's on the back side of the Welcome to Williston sign, is he legal?
What happened?
They can sleep in the back of a vehicle. Is that what you said?
If he's on the back side of the city limit sign, is he legal?
Yes.
For us, I don't know if the county.
Well, he's on the front side, he's breaking the law, but he's on the back side, he's legal. That's
He
county.
can't sleep on either one of them. It's city right away, no matter what. I move approval of ordinance 2025-740 on second reading.
I'll second.
We have a first, we got a second. Any other discussion? None? Anybody? All right. Hearing none, we're going to move to vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? 4-0.
All right, Mr. President, this is the second reading of Ordinance 2025-743, an ordinance of the City of Williston, Florida, amending the City of Williston Code of Ordinances as amended, providing for amending Chapter 40, Article 5, regarding the city's gas system, providing additional definition, providing requirements and exemptions for residential developments to provide natural gas, providing requirements for gas turn-on and proper use of equipment, providing changes to billing and rate structure, providing for rate stabilization fund and hedging of supply, providing for standby mode, providing severability, providing for incorporation in the City Code of Ordinances, and providing an effective date. There have been no changes to this ordinance since first reading. This, of course, is the gas ordinance that we've talked about previously. The only, I'm not going to call it a change, the only addition that you'll see here is like we talked about at the last meeting. I just added in the language regarding the rate structure being via resolution. So you'll see that language in here as well. It was advertised in the ordinance insofar it was advertised in the title, but we didn't have the specific language at the first reading. So you'll have that in the second reading. And I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
I do believe that there's one typo, and maybe more than one, but the one that I jumped out at me.
That would not shock me.
On page 134, and I may be wrong, but I think it's a typo. very last sentence, personal use single-family homes are except. I think it should say exempt.
Accepted and exempted can mean the same. There's sort of synonyms in this context. I'm happy to make it say exempt rather than
It
accept.
says they are accepted from this requirement.
Right.
Yeah.
It's everything except personal use single-family homes. So accepted. It's legalese. I'm happy
So
to
is
change
it
it to
accepted or is it exempt?
it's
To
the
me,
same.
accepted means it's allowed.
To be accepted means it's
I know what
it's
exempted
outside of
means.
the require. No, to be accepted, accepted. It's outside of requirements, so it's except for.
Now, see, I read it totally different.
Yeah, you're thinking
I'm
of
happy to
you're
make it
thinking of
exempted.
AC accepted, and this is EX accepted. So the Latin definition is actually different.
I'm just saying, is it supposed to be exempted from the requirement?
Yes, and that's
And I
what we're
think
saying.
In plain language, I think that would be something people would understand better.
And that's fine. They're
That's just
synonyms,
me.
so
Can you
it's
make the change?
absolutely.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Okay. Any other discussion? Any volunteers for motion?
I make a motion that we approve ordinance 2025-743 with the change of accepted to
Exempted.
exempted. Thank you.
Okay. First, we got a second.
I'll second.
All righty. Do we have any other discussion?
I have a question or two. I don't even know if I can put them together. Of course I do, right? I'm known as the question asker here. What we currently have now? Hit the highlights for me on what's totally different. I mean, like, are the structure I know is different.
No, there's only 4 or 5 major changes. One is the hedging,
Hedging, you're right, the hedging is
which allows
not in the other one, right?
authorizes the city manager to go ahead and make decisions that can't wait for time periods, and it sets limits to what they can do.
Okay.
There's the rate stabilization fund that it establishes.
Yep.
It is further defined. The buyout for development was talked about in the other one, but what was requested by council was that formulas and things were actually put in so that it was codified, just this is the formula and this is how it works.
Right.
So that was put in. There were some definitions changed because of classifying different uses that matched identical with Florida statute on how they described developers, residential development, commercial development, that sort of thing. So we basically just matched the language to the Florida statute.
Okay.
And I believe the last substantial change was the issues addressing like small little housekeeping things, like better defining what meter tampering is, talking about that you can't encase a gas meter or residential commercial property in concrete, and a few other small little tiny issues like that that had to deal with safety measures that were updates to come into compliance with what the Public Service Commission recommended.
Okay. And the fines for tampering and all that sort of thing, and not getting the permit, like
Fines didn't change.
They're all
it just
the same.
It just defined them more directly
Okay,
as to what they were.
but they're not increased.
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. Any other questions? Mr. Mayor.
Is my light on?
It is.
Okay. Obviously, because we got it at such a late date, trying to absorb all this is somewhat difficult. But I thought I read under the municipal gas system that one of the criteria for exemption was a builder that was building less than 10 houses a year. Is that accurate?
That's correct. So that we defined more appropriately what a role of a developer would be, we classified it within how many. So like one-offs are under a totally different set of rules and requirements for single-family build than someone that's developing couple of houses, like maybe a duplex or the townhomes, or they bought 4 or 5 lots together, or even built 4 or 5 lots that are in different parts of town, but we're doing construction all at once. And then there's something that's for an actual PUD, something that's a full-blown development, and they had classifications. And the main criteria is not the formula of what the buyout is. It's mainly whether they're exempted from having to connect to the gas system based on how far they are from that system. So, for example, if you have another Country Lane Estates, they could be a mile away and they still have to connect to the gas system at their cost. But that expectation is not there for 25 homes, for 10 homes, and for single-family residential builds. Those footages go down significantly to where the point where, like on the single-family, we already allow up to 75 feet, so it's very little that they would have to cover additionally to connect. But it does limit whether or not they'd have to pay anything or do the buyout if they were further than that in distance from where the gas is available.
Okay, so I'd like to get clear on this. Are we talking about someone building a personal use single-family house has to do a buyout of the gas?
Absolutely.
Absolutely?
Yes, sir. Now, unless they are so far from where gas is available, and then they would be exempted.
So for those that happen to be afraid of gas and do not want gas appliances, I think this is government overreach. That's my opinion.
So actually, I would explain it, Mr. Mayor, and I understand your thought, but the reason why people are moving in this direction in the state is you have to look at this the same as any other utility. Think of water, think of sewer, and think of electric. Your rates that each person in this town pay are based on the amount of users that you have enjoying that service. So, for example, if you have 4 square miles and you have 2,000 people on electric, they're splitting the base cost on their base rate of that operations and maintenance. Then, of course, their consumable energy is what pays for the energy itself. In gas, we have roughly 700 people on gas. If you do not mandate that people coming in and taking advantage of the infrastructure in the town that are not already here. I mean, these are not people who already have a home. No one who has a dwelling who wants to add gas or take away gas. None of them are this is talking about brand new development. They then are hurting the ratepayers because they're not coming into a system that's designed to take on them as a gas customer. They absolutely can exempt out, but they have to understand that loss of revenue has a real financial effect on all the ratepayers across the town, and you're actually having to pay more as a person that uses gas because of people having the option of coming in and not doing gas. Most people, if they're given the option, will not do it because it's added on to the construction of the house. But if it's no longer not an option to exempt other than to pay a small fine, when they research this and we talk to builders and they realize that the price of the home goes up, or even people moving into the house, the benefits of during a storm when they're out of electricity and what the gas allows them to still do in their home, most of the time, I would say 95% of the time, they then want to put in gas when they realize that there's so many benefits to it. But to get that discussion to happen, you have to have a buyout. I'll give you an example, real life. The gym across the street, Anytime Fitness, submitted plans. They were not required to put in gas, but we met with the engineers on site. We talked to them about just pure business. If the power goes down, do you want your business and your gym to just completely stop? So we talked to them about their hot water tanks. We talked to them, their water tanks. We talked to them about their generator for the facility. And when they understood that the cost savings that they would have over many years and the benefit of the energy, and I want to point that last thing out. When you have electric appliances, they're about 30% efficient. When you have a gas appliance, it's around 75 to 80% efficient. So the amount of money that you're paying for that same energy